Week 17. It was last week. It was an alright episode. It was passable. There's some really interesting acting choices and some really delightful moments. Delightful is not a good term for this episode, but just beautifully acted and very engaging to watch. But it kind of falls by the wayside in the same way. It's This also happens to be the last episode that was aired in 1978, and this will be the last review I do for the year 2015. We'll come back January 6th or something like that. That's when the episode airs. I'll do a review shortly after that. Anyways, this television worked differently back in 1978 than it does in 2015, very clearly. Because in today's landscape, this would have been considered the mid-season finale. Because it's the last episode that aired before the holidays. Usually shows take a lengthy break before they come back. But Dallas didn't, at least not in this season. So that's just not the path that they chose to go with for season 1. This episode was fine, but it was another kidnapping episode. It's interesting. They had two, the Lucy kidnapping episode wasn't really a kidnapping situation in the sense that she wasn't kidnapped right away. That's what I mean by that. Because, that was a kidnapping situation, but it played completely differently than this episode where Bobby gets kidnapped right away. He knows that these people are out to get him, but they're really out to get JR. Oh, JR. Such an interesting character. And he does some slightly nasty things in this episode. I don't think it's anything compared to what we're ramping up to. But, that's been one of my problems with this episode because I think I've told you guys I have seen this full season before. I haven't seen the full series, but with this study I wanted to do it the way it originally aired because I don't think you can truly analyze something outside of the context of how it was released, especially for television, because episodically plays extremely differently than binge watching. So when you binge watch it, this episode feels extremely similar to a previous episode this season. However, when it's episodically and all of these other things are going around in your life, you kind of forget about it and you can kind of just take this episode as is, which is fine. I have to say, I thought the standout acting person, it's an actress in the show, was the female kidnapper. Her eyes, it was so intense, and the only reason she was doing this was for money. And I got chills just watching the show because it was so sad. Like, she's talking about she was desperate, she would do anything, and they accidentally killed someone in a previous hostage situation. But Bobby is trying to talk to her because Bobby's the one who's gotten kidnapped, and she says, you don't know what it's like for us because you were born with money. You don't know what it's like to live without money. I thought that was a really interesting moral dilemma that Bobby found himself in. Bobby is the moral center of the show, but it's very true that when we look at the show, Daddy, Jock, loves Bobby a lot more than he loves JR. And Bobby's been spoiled growing up, and he's gotten everything that he's wanted. Is he a nice person? Yes. is he a moral person? For the most part, yeah. He, like all of us, make some bad choices, but he's on the straight path in terms of the show, right? This isn't a real person, but in terms of the show, he's just on a very straight path. Having him really have to question, and they don't delve too deeply into this in the episode, but I thought it was a really interesting dilemma putting him in, having him question, I have everything that I ever wanted, but my life can be taken away from me now. And I don't think he really understood how difficult it was for people who didn't have money until that point in time. Will they really touch back on this again? I highly doubt it. I don't think they will. I think they developed a little bit more with Cliff and Sue Ellen, if I'm remembering correctly, in this episode. And the mean JR moment is JR tries to take over, and they shoot two of the three kidnappers. And the female one's the one who lives. I thought that was interesting. And watching her, like, crying over her partner in crime, it was weird because I felt sad for that character. And this is a very mean character. I don't know how she did it, but she did. I felt really bad for that character because she was striving after something that really wasn't going to fulfill her. It was only a temporary fix. This episode marks the first of many, many, many deaths that will occur throughout Dallas. But this was our first death this episode. How would the first half of the first season feel like? Man, we've had a lot of ups and downs this first half of the first season. This was an okay episode, and I enjoyed it. For the most part, yeah, it was pleasurable. Am I looking forward to the next time we return to Dallas? Because I get a couple of weeks off. This week that I'm uploading the video was off. Next week is off. And I think I'm on again the week after that. Am I looking forward to next week's episode? Not next week, but the next episode? Yeah, I guess so. I mean, this episode was service. I mean, it did what it set out to do, and it did it okay. It wasn't phenomenal, but it wasn't terrible. This is one of the examples, though, of this episode works much better episodically than it ever did binge watching. Because when you binge watch it just seems way too similar to an episode several weeks ago. But when it's several weeks ago, all of a sudden it doesn't seem that similar because so many things circumstantially have happened. Anyways, I will catch you guys next time. We'll be in 2016. We're going to finish out season 1 and gear up for season 2 very, very soon. I think we're over the halfway point this season as well. But anyways, I hope you will come back with me and just continue on my journey as we keep going back to South Fork.